So if you're a business owner, have you ever worked with an agency or worked with a brand strategist and they just can't get your message down? It feels false. It feels inauthentic. It doesn't feel right. On this episode, we're going to be talking to brand strategist Samantha Aalyze on what it takes to have the proper brand that truly represents you as an individual and your organization, not just for profits, but for messaging. Awesome, Samantha. Thanks for being here. We got Samantha Aalyze in the building. So for people that don't know this, because I think this is kind of thrown around quite a bit, and I think there's key differences between organizations, agencies, and people as far as brand strategy. So what is a personal brand strategist? Tell us a little bit about that.
So a personal brand strategist basically looks at everything holistically, more so from the standpoint of who you are, what you do, how exactly you help people, and why someone should listen. It's basically working one-on-one directly with a founder saying, hey, what is it that you actually have in your brain that's not being communicated in your messaging and your marketing throughout your social media? Because we all know that as founders and individuals, we truly get caught up in the rest of the world and our message dilutes. Like we watch so much information, it just changes. So I help basically create that ultimate message that carries out through their content, through their messaging, and they can actually explain it in person easier as well.
So it sounds like you also help people eliminate some of the noise that's influencing them in a way that's counter to their brand and to their messaging.
Yeah, no, that's like a big part of what I do.
Yeah.
Big part of what I do.
Tell us a little bit about that. So like you have a business owner that you're working with or several, and they're like, well, I heard this and I should do this and I should follow this framework. And you're like, ugh.
I'm like, dude, like, do you even want to do that? Like, we're in the information age for sure, where there's tons of content, so many different types of content, and you're just trying to find the pattern that works for you. But ultimately, you have to figure out the goal. And since I work with a lot of coaches, consultants, creatives, it's like, do you want clients or do you want to grow and be famous? Because sometimes they don't correlate. Sometimes the 20 million view video doesn't necessarily correlate to clients. It correlates to people just following you because they liked that humor or they liked that thing that you made. But that doesn't mean that they're interested in what you have to sell. So it's kind of like you have to really pick a goal in mind and carry with that. And if you don't have that, then you're kind of just picking what to post and thinking this is great because I'm being consistent and I'm doing what everyone else is doing, but then you don't have your own identity.
So it'd be like if somebody's saying, hey, I'm going on social media and I want to go viral, versus the person who's saying, I'm okay maybe getting 200 views, knowing that 25% of those views are people that are hardcore, really interested in actually buying from me.
100%, because, I mean, you can do both, where once your brand is established enough that it actually calls in potential clients. But Caleb Ralston is a great example, where he literally talks about building a brand is about trust, and it's literally more about trust than virality. And I speak the same truth, where it's like you want people to actually trust you, like you, know you, understand you, and get them to... It's like connecting on a different level. And so if you just create viral videos on top of viral videos, it's like emptiness. It's like, what am I actually learning from this person? Because eventually if you grow over time, then you're growing virality. But from the start, it's better with like the 200 views having a couple of likes because those people are actually interested.
So here's something for you. Why do you think so many founders rush to, let's just say, outsource marketing before they can clearly explain what they do and why it matters?
Because they think that that's the thing that they need to do. So marketing agencies and social media managers do a great job at selling you the dream of like what they can get for you. And it's mostly virality, which we have equated to success. I understand it because, I mean, honestly, in the age of influencers, in the age of content creators, it looks easy, but it's not. Like, again, it goes back to the ultimate goal of what you have in mind. What do you want to attract? Your dream clients who are going to pay you $10, $15, $20, $30,000, or the ones who are just going to buy your $39 product over and over and over again? You have to pick what that's going to look like. Hopefully that kind of answers your question a little bit.
I was going to say, like, I think there's at least a lot of the chatter you hear, so to speak, is get away from doing the stuff that's not really, you're not the expert at, right? So if somebody's maybe just starting up their company, it's like, let me get this off my plate as soon as I can. Would you say that's the approach you should take? Or it's like, really don't do that until what? Or until when?
So if you work with a social media manager, an agency, right, they're going to create the strategy for you. And so I talked about like the knowledge gap a little bit. This is something that gets built with them. And so that doesn't actually get carried through. So why brand strategy and like having a foundation beforehand is so incredibly important is because then you know exactly what you're talking about as a founder. Because again, you're the person leading everything. And so I'm sure you both have had video editors or people that you've worked with, and you're trying to communicate something and you go back and forth for like a few times on renditions of edits. Has that ever happened?
Yeah.
Right? Because it just doesn't feel right, but then you're kind of like, what doesn't feel right about this? Imagine doing that at the very beginning of your business and having to do that over and over and over again because it never feels right because you don't know what you're saying. You don't actually believe in the message that you have. You don't know who you're talking to. You don't know how to communicate it. You don't know why it's important to you. It's like all of those elements are missing. And so it's what people sell you on the dream to say, we'll help you go viral. We'll create the strategy, but we can't guarantee you clients. It's like, no, I want to help you guarantee clients. I want to actually help you get money, whether that means you get 200 views or 200,000 views. Either way, let's actually find the people that are going to connect with what you're saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're basically trying to identify what do I actually want to stand for,
Yep.
right? It's like, and so when you're working with somebody and they're coming to you, how many of them have actually maybe established that of an idea, strong idea, all right, this is what I want to represent, and this is how I want to represent, or are they just clueless for the majority of people that you're coming across?
Honestly, a majority are pretty clueless. Like if I ask you both right now, what do you want to be known for? Can you tell me right off the rip?
Jedi Master extraordinaire.
Yeah, six-pack abs. Nah, I mean, I know in the business, I know it's important more for us. To a point, it's not a matter of views. It's, people that we're actually helping and actual clients.
But I mean, like, the question is, what do you want to be known for? Like, you two as individuals.
Yeah.
If someone were to be like, come up to you and ask you, I'm going to interview you right now, could you answer that question?
I mean, I would say for me is someone that's very generous, someone that is holds their own intellectually, and also just a good father, good husband.
That's a great thing to be known for. Do you have something that you?
Yeah, I mean, I think very simplistically speaking would be just very strong leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be the one who like I want to be known for the person who's generally interested in helping you build a brand. Like on top of the things that I know as far as who I am as an individual, where I'm outgoing, funny, super nerdy. But there's so many other things where I'm like, I actually genuinely want to help you be successful and want to see you win. And for that, I want to be known for the type of brands that I help build. So that's like those types of things where we sometimes think it's about the characteristics that we want to be known for instead of the actual identity that we're looking to build.
Appreciate you threw us on the spot like that.
Yeah.
That was cool. So one of the questions that we had was you mentioned knowledge transfer gaps, because I feel like this is a good segue into that. So knowledge transfer gaps in branding. What does that look like in practice, and why is it so damaging long term?
This is like the hill that I could die on. Truthfully, it's the part where you hire a social media manager, you hire an agency, you have external support, and they create the strategy for you. And so as having been a social media manager myself and worked in social media prior to starting my own business, I know that people are notorious for ghosting when something goes wrong in the relationship, and you are left without any of that strategy. And I'm sure somebody on this podcast, if not the both of you, have experienced paying out for something, never getting the return, and just being like, that went horribly. And it's like they built something for me that I don't know how to replicate. And especially with social media managers or trying to outsource it, they're so attached to what they build for you, and then you get attached as a business owner to like what they've created, but then really it can just blow up in any instance. Like I remember working for a client who called me on Christmas Eve and said, there's a typo. I was like, girl, fix it yourself. And then called me on Christmas Day, and I said, this is too far. Like this is over. But again, I had created the whole strategy for her, and the transfer of knowledge was then gone for her. Like I didn't care to, because she like damaged the relationship so badly. And so that being said, we often experience that. And that's when me and my good friend Jenna, we talked about when marketing became schemy, because it happens. It happens a lot. Like you buy into these agencies and advertisement places that help you grow and do X and Y and Z, but then something turns sour in the relationship and you have nothing.
What do you think it typically is of what makes these relationships go sour?
Whether it be the individuals or like whatever happens, it's ultimately, I think it comes down to like the founder has a vision that they are not communicating well enough, and they are not understanding kind of what's going on here. So they leave it to someone else, and then they never know how to do it themselves. And so that's what I try to eliminate. Like, I want to help you know your identity, who you're serving, how to talk about your business, so that it's easily transferable to your team. Whenever you onboard someone, whenever you have to outsource, you get to do it in a way that actually makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna actually say that, like, how much of that is just, you know, the owner saying, here you go, I hired you to do all the work.
Exactly.
And then they're very passive, and then something happens, and it's, well, again, I'm paying you to do this for me, but they don't have any of that knowledge, so to speak, to actually contribute to the growth of their own vision.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Dan Martell talks about this too, is just like, are you a manager or are you a leader? And he talks about what kind of person that we are when we bring somebody on. And I mean, I've been a crappy boss. I've been someone who's just like, hey, go do this. And then I'm like, that's not quite right. And I'm like, I didn't teach you how to do that. I'm sorry. Like, I should have taught you better. But if you don't know what to teach someone, then you're going to leave them in the dust, you in the dust, and it's just ultimately going to go astray. Because like I said, you guys have had interactions with people where you've submitted a ton of edits and you're like, why doesn't this feel right? And that feeling right is because the brand isn't there.
It almost seems like it's like a couple of sides to a coin, where the agency, for example, because we've definitely kind of experienced this where we have an agency where they just want to assume what we're needing.
Yep.
And they don't really have a good extraction process, like an intake process of really understanding what Dan and I were looking for.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so you mean this, you mean this. It's like, no, that's not what we're saying at all. Like, it was very evident at the beginning, like, oh, you're just trying to make it easy for yourself, not actually trying to understand what we're trying to do. And so I feel like that's like one side of it that, you know, happens where they just don't have, they have the machine for the marketing, but they don't have the skill of extracting the message.
No. And you see that so much right now with like content creation agencies.
Because it's a sales process at that point.
Yeah.
They're trying to understand it for the sale.
Yeah. And with working with one of my clients, they literally said, I paid $15,000 for 6 months of content, and all they use is ChatGPT. And I'm like, dude.
It's so obvious at this point.
So bad.
I cannot stand ChatGPT right now.
Right. Yeah,
I can't stand people that are leaning into it way too much, where like everything sounds the same. There's a lot of like commercials nowadays, like, it's not just a journey, it's an experience. It's not just this, it's another. And it's just like, bro, like, it is horrible brain rot.
Horrible.
I cannot. I would love just like original writers.
Well, that's a fair point. Do you suggest then, I mean, you know, and Antonio, you do a good job of just like asking experts, like, all right, what questions should a business owner ask before engaging? Do you now think that's an important question to ask, of who's actually generating the content or what is generating the content?
I would say the reason that we're not, like, the reason that ChatGPT is in the state that it is because we don't know how to use it. And so the types of things that I do with my clients is actually have work, like homework assignments, and I say, you are not allowed to use AI. I want you to sit. I do not care how long this takes you. You are extracting this from your brain because this is your idea. This is everything that you're building. And if you don't know how to explain this, then we have a problem. And so ultimately, you have to know how to tweak Chat. You have to know how to tweak Claude. You have to know how to tweak any language model to fit. But it doesn't make any sense when you don't have foundations to build from, of like, what is my mission that I'm talking through? Who am I directly talking for? What kind of person do I want to talk like? And there's, like, for example, have you guys ever seen it's the show Sex and the City?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
obsessed.
Yeah.
Not the sequel though.
Yeah.
That one sucked.
Dude, yeah.
So
I just got flashbacks from ex-fiance where that's all she had. And there's a Samantha character in there too, right?
Yeah. No, there is a Samantha character, which is very funny. So Carrie Bradshaw, right? Mm-hmm. She talks like a very certain way. Mm-hmm. Like, for some reason it's escaping me, and it's but she like literally says something of just like, she says, I couldn't help but wonder. And then she like leads into her thought of like her article, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's like finding people like her, finding someone else who I really enjoy talking like, or like the way that people used to say, find someone you like that talks the way that you're interested in, and then have it emulate that. But you kind of have to know what that means. Like, you have to know, is that casual? Is that fun? Is that more or less conversational? Like, I choose to speak less businessy because it doesn't fit me. I could curse like a sailor all day long, and that doesn't usually happen in my content, or I try not to do it in podcasts, but it literally is a part of my brand. And when people try to diminish that, I'm like, no, I want to be casual. I want to make it fun because it's not meant to be serious. I don't have to be serious. I'm building my own business. Like, that gets to be the brand. So ultimately, with training a chat and creating a voice, you kind of have to know, what do you want to sound like? Like, do you want to just be yourself? Because ultimately that's going to be the easiest thing.
Yeah. But before the camera started rolling, we were talking about, it was Christo, right? And Christo, absolute G, guru in the marketing space. And what was the advice that he gave you? So you met him, he gave you some really good advice, and that kind of segues into this about finding what's true to you. Yeah.
So I was at a conference. It's called Forward here in Vegas. Totally recommend for anyone who hasn't been. It's with Neil Dingra.
DeGrasse Tyson. Oh, never mind.
No. Neil Dingra.
Yeah. I was like,
Neil deGrasse Tyson. No. It's not about the planetary alignment and all the things that in space. But it was really good. And he basically created, he showed an example of this one client who loved Jim Beam whiskey. Loved it. Loved the brand. Loved the colors about it. And he was like, how do we extract this? Like, let's think about the font. Let's think about the colors. Let's think about what this means to you. And it created this beautiful story as to what her business was. And so when I was thinking about my business, I have a school community called the Brand Rebellion. I was like, this is about Star Wars. I love Star Wars. And then I was like, but I love The Matrix. I love, Back to the Future. I love so many other things that just break conformity to what it is. And so I asked him about it. I said, hey, I'm building the Brand Rebellion, and I'm really kind of emulating it off of Star Wars. And he said, I'll tell you one thing. When you take something from one thing, it's copying. But when you take something from a conglomerate of things and make it yours, it becomes original. And so I spent hours with my chat, and I was like, how do I explain this? What do I do with this? What can I create? And ultimately, the Brand Rebellion speaks really clearly. And after I announced that, so many people were messaging me of just this speaks exactly to what I'm going through. And it's just the founders who don't want to do things traditionally and don't want to have to fit in a box because we're just not meant to be that.
So then how do you take, if you have a, let's just say, I don't know, a construction company or maybe somebody in healthcare, right? Where it's all right, we're all very similar, or, especially in healthcare, very clean cut.
Yeah.
How does that person, I think that's the overthinking part of their brain, saying, all right, do I want to be different even though all my fellow colleagues are kind of the same? So, and you mentioned the word at the beginning of the show, framework, right? Of not taking, so how do you actually not just help somebody create that brand, but how do you make them, I think, feel comfortable about going in that direction that's different?
Truthfully, it comes a lot to finding the things that you love. And so for me, Star Wars, Matrix, Back to the Future. I remember at this conference, particularly for Forward, I was talking, so there was a bunch of real estate people and mortgage lenders. And so there was someone was talking to me about mortgage lending. And I was like, do you like what you do? And they were like, it's okay. I was like, great talk, dude. This is awesome. But
you got me convinced.
Yeah. I was like, thank you. I really want to just advance in this career. But once I got to talking to him, I was like, what do you actually enjoy outside of work? And he was like, I love Harry Potter. I was like, okay. And I was like, imagine your brand that was built off of literally the difference
Horcruxes and shit.
Horcruxes and wizards and muggles and things that actually made his brand unique, because you can explain something. We could talk about construction, mortgages, real estate agents, X, Y, and Z, the same thing over and over again, right? But it's how you explain it is what makes you unique, because it's your point of view, it's your perspective, X, Y, and Z. So if I'm saying, your muggle, payments, your muggle money just doesn't work here. You have to come be a wizard in order to do something. I have no idea what I'm saying at this point, but you know what I mean? It's just something that's different to where it's oh, okay, because mortgage, real estate, construction sometimes can be confusing for the outside consumer. And
oh, I see.
Yeah, as I was mentioning to you guys earlier about the AI company that I was talking with earlier, it's we think that we have to be this big complex idea and how we speak about it, but we don't. We can just be really simple, but just make it fun. So to someone who's not really willing to go out of the bounds, I would say, why not? Because if you're doing something that you don't necessarily love, why not make it a little bit more fun so that you can actually enjoy it and other people would actually want to work with you?
How much of that do you think is due to just the mentality that we have a lot, which is, well, nobody else is doing it this way, so why should I do it this way?
I mean, but why do you want to be like everyone else would be my question, right? Is cool, you could do that, but like, isn't that why you escaped corporate? Isn't that why you're not in corporate? Because you don't want to confine to the normal things that they do. I know for a fact, a friend that I work with, I love his company, I love his build, but he knew from the jump when I met him that I would not join corporate because it's just not in my bones. Like, I didn't like it when I was in it, and I was like, so when I built my brand, I started talking corporate-y, and I was very businessy, and I remember someone saying to me, this doesn't even sound like you. And I was like, okay, just give me a second. I'll figure it out. And now I have, just because I don't really want to change who I am in order to conform to something else. So why would anybody else want to? Why would you want to be a carbon copy of somebody else who's done what they need to do to create their footprint instead of creating your own?
Just even from simple strategy, when you're developing like a differentiator, and just like, all right, if you're going to be like everybody else, you're certainly going to be drowned out with everybody else. So you're essentially saying, like, being true to your interests, your inclinations, fuse it into what you're doing. What you're doing, so it's easier for the public to understand. Like the Harry Potter one. Yeah. Like this past week, our family marathoned all of Harry Potter just recently, and I have twin sons. They're 2 years old, and now they're grabbing like spoons and they're going do 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 do. And they're just, and so I feel like there is, if we're talking about construction, like the common person doesn't know like construction vernacular, but if you fuse some things with Harry Potter, like it's easier for people to make a connection with you. Yeah. And so you're saying, like, dude, fuse those things with what you like, so you can make explanations about what you're doing in their tongue to attract them. Yep. And like everybody wins.
Everybody wins, because, I mean, Alex Ramosi literally talks about this best. He literally says you have to talk to like everyone like a third grader, but simply because with the company I was mentioning earlier, the AI company, with the over complex language of like maybe they're directly speaking to engineers. I was like, cool, but they're still people, dude. Like they're not going to want to hear all the jargon that you have to say about X, Y, and Z. They just want to know that it's going to save them time, get them money, and help them build something faster, right? And they were like, yeah. Then I was like, let's just point that out, because why do we need to have all this jargon that we think we have to have because it looks polished, professional, blah, blah, blah? It doesn't. It's confusing.
What's an example of one where you were working with them and they followed that framework, that train of thought of like, I want to be polished, I got to be corporate, I got to be this, I got to be that, and then they flipped it, and then their business's dynamic changed?
I've had actually several instances with like almost every single one of my clients. So one of my clients, ironically not in the same field, but she's an esthetician, and it was like, so aesthetics comes with like very high beauty standards, like very high beauty standards of like, you have to look a certain way in order to be an esthetician or even a hairstylist or whatever, right? And so she started her business, I want to say almost 2 years ago now. And the first 3 months of working together, I just let her do her thing. I was like, I don't think you like this, but you do what you want. So I kept challenging her opinion, and it was basically like pink, soft, like just pretty and all these things. 3 months later, I get a phone call just like randomly from her, and I'm like, hey, like, what's up? And she's like, I'm sick of this. This doesn't feel like me. I'm so tired of trying to fit into what everyone else has. Like, this just doesn't feel authentic. And I was like, okay, let's change it. Like, I'm ready for you. Like, I just needed you to be ready for that. And it's a crazy shift because you get to embody all the things. It's your business. Why wouldn't you make it fun? Like, why wouldn't you make it yourself? Like, sure, you can go into all the, like, the color psychology and, like, make it look pretty and do all blah, blah, blah. Like, who cares? If you love it, if you're building it, then make it your own, because everyone else will fall in line with what you're saying, not necessarily what it looks like.
What happened to her business once that mind shift happened within her, where she was like, you're right, I'm done, I'm just going to go with it? Like, to walk us through and describe like what happened with her business at that point, and with her too as well, with that mindset shift.
Oh my God. clients through the door, just more conversations, more people asking her about her services. She felt lighter. She felt like it was easier to explain herself because it was about the message in itself as well. So it was literally like after that 3 months, it was an instant brain shift of like, I need to change this. I need to move forward. And so the conversations that she had when she went to networking events changed. When she showed people her brand and even her Instagram page, people were like, I love this. This is so fun and playful. Like, it took time to find that again of like what it authentically looked like for her. But ultimately, just it felt lighter. You could feel that this person like broke the fourth wall of what they were trying to build in the perception and the eyes of what everyone else thought it had to be. And then it was just her. Like, it just felt easy.
Would you say the goal when you're, when they're creating the brand is to have something that's going to last like a very long time, something that's sustainable?
I would say the foundation of the brand, yes, because it's like building a house, right? You can have solid foundation and you can have everything kind of aligned, and then you can change the inside. Changing the inside doesn't do anything. Like, changing the aesthetic part of it, that's fine. But like, the foundation is always going to be the same for the most part. Like, who you're serving, what you're trying to do, and if that evolves, that's perfectly fine. But I think it's more so about if the bones are good, then it's fine.
That's a question. So remember the one a little bit earlier about what's the difference between a brand that looks polished on the outside and one that's actually sustainable on the inside? Because this is a really good example of that.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? Difference between a brand that looks polished on the outside and one that's actually sustainable on the inside?
Polished on the outside, I have actually a couple of good examples. Polished on the outside sometimes looks unattainable. It looks like very hard to reach. I have a couple of clients who've had that instance. One was a gym and one is a consultant. The gym, it just created this like Lifetime Fitness kind of vibe, Equinox, where it was like a home gym. I was like, what? Like, you guys don't even have this vibe in there. So it felt inauthentic to who they were trying to reach. So it looked fantastic in the sense of very like Peloton, very Athleta, very Lululemon in a sense. But the community was about breaking the mold, and it was about reaching other people and making it feel like a safe place. And I was like, this gives not safe. This gives like, I have to have a certain body type to be there. I have to look a certain way to be there. I have to have the perfect matching aloe set to be in that room with you. And they were like, oh yeah, no, I don't like that. So the polished piece was more so like it sometimes gives a different message versus the kind of people that you're trying to communicate with. And the consultant itself, other person I'm referring to, they literally got told that they felt unattainable. They felt unreachable because everything looked so good. It looked so pristine. It looked so polished and perfect when like they're just down to earth. They're super sweet. They just want to help people and serve them. But it felt like people really had to have status or had to have symbol in order to reach them. So ultimately, what it looks like when people have a polished brand is like, are you actually talking to your target demographic, being like, do they actually want that? Or do they actually just want to see you? Like, do they just want you to be yourself? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, we're talking a lot, obviously, about clarity for consumers, clients. And you mentioned something at the very beginning of when you're talking to business owners, how much of a stress, how much do you stress this point as it relates to creating your brand and having clarity for the employees? Because that's the way I feel. A lot of times we kind of, it's just, customers get your ICP and all, make sure, but then it's like, all right, what about the employees and how that relates to your actual vision for how you want your brand to be represented?
I love this question because I was actually literally just talking about it yesterday. When you as a founder have the clarity, it becomes transferable and it becomes easier. So ask me your question one more time just so I make sure I'm getting there.
So just essentially, we stress the importance of understanding and establishing the brand for consumers, but then I feel a lot of times the employees kind of get overlooked. Like, we don't really see the importance of establishing it and then being able to communicate that to them.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure like my brain was like on track with where I was going.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
I think truthfully, we do forget about them because it's kind of like the knowledge transfer gap, right? We don't know how to explain it. And so, for example, of like the conversation I was having yesterday, I was like, we need to clearly define this so that it's a part of an HR training. Because if we're, you guys ever heard that term of like where any corporate situation and they say like, we're like a big family here. And then it's like anyone's big red flag.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it makes me want to throw
Yeah.
up. It's like automatic heartburn.
Like, you're my family. You're fired tomorrow, by the way. But anyway,
Yeah, they just hang on to people way too long because we're a family. Or
Yeah, and you're like,
sports team.
oh, so you guys like don't tell each other anything. It's all passive aggressive and X, Y, and Z. You're like, I don't think I want to be a part of that. That's ultimately kind of like what people start off because the culture's not there, right? The culture, it's just not transferable. And so I want to help a lot of people with that because once you have that idea, then you can explain it. But it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of divulging and going through like what I like to call brand therapy of understanding how you explain your message to people and how that can be brought to your team. So that being said, that can be a part of your onboarding process. That can be a part of like your mission, going through at least when you're bringing people on saying, hey, this is what we stand for. And we're not like a family. Like we really are more so like, you come here and you work, yes, make friends, yes, feel friendly, yes, grow and be here. But it's like, if you don't fit, we're going to kick you out. Plain and simple. But it depends on like what kind of culture you want to create. And I think a lot of that has to come with what you guys talk about, culture. Like, it comes with building a sustainable system and a sustainable transferable message.
Yeah, I was going to like really interrupt 1 second. I feel like I see that a lot in healthcare where it's, our branding, so to speak, is about, and what we tell employees and what we tell patients about, getting patients better or getting people better. And then, just make them wait 4 weeks to get an appointment versus the clinic that is maybe saying, all right, we can get you in within 24 hours. And, I've seen it where it creates a lot of conflict almost for employees where it's, all right, are you about this? Or are you really, are you about helping people or are you about the money? Which one is it? And just having that consistent message of, all right, what are we actually about and what are we being consistent with, so we're not just confusing people.
Well, and like that's where it's like, say it with your chest. Like if you believe that, stand behind it. But if you don't, then just own it. Like if you're literally like, I understand, like we can look at what were they called? Amazon bought them recently. One Medical, right? Yeah. One Medical was fantastic before Amazon bought it. No offense, Amazon, kind of offense, but anyway, it was because One Medical actually made the culture lovely. The offices were great. Everything was like systematized. It felt like an experience, and it felt like being able to use like a Kaiser-like system without actually having to go into Kaiser. Because if anyone experiences Kaiser,
don't.
Anyway,
like don't.
Anyway, but that being said, once Amazon bought it, it took that away, and so it's like people. It's like when we look at airlines, right? Southwest is a great example of what this looks like across. You create a customer experience, and you create a culture that people are like drawn to, and then you all of a sudden like rip it away from them. What does that say about you? Because it's like, if that was your differentiator and if that's what made you different, why would you move against that?
Complete lack of awareness, I think.
Sometimes, exactly.
Like, you see that a lot with like new CEOs. Cracker Barrel kind of had a situation like that too recently, where they just kind of pulled the rug out. They readjusted the brand, and then people were just like, yeah, no, fuck this. I'm not interested.
They missed the mark. And they fully admitted it too. They were like, oh, like our bad.
We're not touching this.
Yeah. Like we understand that it's more about the people. And I think that's, Disney with Bob Iger, like they literally brought him back because it was now he's out again. Yeah. But it's like what do you want to create? How do you keep it?
Well, and that I think you bring up a different point, but still on the same track, which is even just when the company transitions, right? So in that instance, like, hey, we got bought out. There's a chiropractor in Vegas that I was talking to, and he got bought out by private equity. So kind of similar to One Medical. You get bought out by a bigger company, and they promise you X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, now I can't treat patients I've been treating for 10, 15 years. Yeah. Now they're not letting us take this insurance, and it's affecting the whole brand, like the message of the company. You can see he's like so upset and frustrated. Like, I built this brand up, and now it's getting destroyed.
Yeah. And I think that's hard because ultimately, even in acquisitions and transitions, I think that there should still be like heavily communicated information to your clientele, because it's like, look, just because this is changing doesn't mean that we want to change our promise, but it may look different. Transparency, right? Where I was listening to a podcast the other day that was like, I prefer transparency over honesty, because transparency is when you're going to tell me how it is, but honesty is just like, if I find it, then you'll tell me, right? But transparency is like transparent from the beginning. It's open, it's honest, it's reflective. And I think people appreciate that from the jump. And same thing of like, when you're talking about a company culture and what you're creating and how it's transferring across the employees. If you're like, this is the kind of ship that we run, and you give them the opportunity to say no, great. Yeah. Then this isn't for you. But you have to establish those types of things and be transparent along the way for it actually to be successful.
Yeah. I definitely want to learn more about, you mentioned a couple times brand therapy. It's almost like jumbo shrimp or something like that. It's like this oxymoron. But what is that? And kind of explain a little bit more about brand therapy and why it's important for business owners.
So as a disclaimer, I'm not a certified therapist by any means. It is just a fun term because I personally have been through like a lot in life, and like I think it has given me a very upper, I don't know, like leverage in a way, but just to have these like real conversations with people. A lot of the times brand therapy comes in when a founder doesn't, it's like relating outside of the business. It's imposter syndrome. It's not knowing, it's knowing what to post, but feeling so afraid to do it because you feel like you're going to get it wrong. Brand therapy looks like real conversations with real founders about the real things that they're struggling with. And that means I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be exposed. And I was just having a conversation like this yesterday with one of my founders who built a company who has a valuation of like $7 billion and was like, I'm good with not being the face. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, that's not how that works now. Like, you have to build the leverage and the personal brand that's going to be out there. But that doesn't mean you have to expose your whole life and, like, what you've done and, like, who you've been with and, like, every single mistake that you've ever made. It just means you have to be okay with going through phases like Cringe Mountain and having those moments of uncomfortability and saying, I'm okay right now and I'm going to get through this. It's going to get easier, but it's going through those uncomfortable moments and not knowing how to navigate it. And I work with a lot of people who have never had those conversations and never had someone who has made them open up. And I literally just had a client who I've been working with him for almost 2 years now. I met him in March last year and we haven't done a single thing in branding, but because he's gone through a divorce and he's gone through like a lot of other things. And he told me the other day, he's like, it's been deeper than the brand because he's like, I haven't known who I am. And so we worked really clearly on the identity and what he's want to be known for. And by all means, I was a friend and a support and a confidant in that level. But it's to where he's felt so seen and heard to where now he's like, I'm ready to build. Like, I'm ready and I know who I am. So it's like deeper level conversations that anyone needs to have. It's
so interesting, kind of continue on the idea of therapy where I think, have you ever met those people that like you're looking at them and you're like, you need some therapy.
Yeah.
But they're not aware that they need it. They're
100%.
You know, and it's like things have to happen in order for it to be like, okay, I should see a professional. I should see therapy. I should figure something out. I wonder with your world, do you find that more companies are like, you really need to go through this kind of brand therapy route earlier rather than later and really untangle some of these thoughts and find that identity before you think you need it?
Yeah. I mean, because like, why do you think that we all feel so gypped when it comes to hiring a marketing agency or a videographer or someone where we're like all of a sudden in the middle of a chat GPT script and we're like, what am I saying right now? It's not this, but it's this. Yeah. It's like, like, no, I want to scream because that's not how they sound.
Immediately.
Literally. And it loses the personality. It loses everything about the founder. And so personally, go through like with working with someone like me allows them to have exposure to brand therapy much earlier on to where you get to say, what are the real things that you're dealing with that you're not facing that's stopping you from actually doing the thing that you want to do? If you want to be an influencer, go be an influencer, dude. Like, I support you, but stop being afraid of it.
I have an interesting question that kind of continues on that. There's some industries that there's a certain mindset that is, it revolves around that industry, right? So oil people, for example, you know, in gas and oil versus like Wall Street, you know, traders, day traders. Are there some, if someone told you like, hey, they're a doctor, they're a surgeon, is there some things that you're like, oh, I already know that they might be going through this, they need help with this versus someone from like a very different industry? Do you kind of see patterns like that personally?
I do. And truthfully, most of the time it's someone who's just exited corporate and is moving into entrepreneurship in any industry.
Tell us about that.
it looks like someone who is refusing to take things day by day. Because, I mean, you guys know, entrepreneurship is not a linear thing.
No.
Like, it is like you were stressing about where a paycheck is coming from one month and then what you're going to do the next day. And if you have a free day, you're like, what do I do? Do I strategize? Do I go to lunch? Do I get a massage? Like, it's just not linear. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But we're crazy here. But someone coming from a corporate, it makes sense. It's structure. It's formal. It's, I have this. I need to do this by X and Y deadline. And I remember I worked with a client who it didn't end on the greatest of terms, but because it was literally an expected timeline as to how things were going to go. And I was like, that's just not how that works. Like and I typically work with people anywhere between 3 to 6 months, because after about 6 months is when they really start to unlock things. Like, as I mentioned, I've worked with clients for over 2 years now, and it's a cool process to see them kind of start unlocking things along the way. But it's almost the stubbornness and the unwillingness to change, that it's like almost like if you don't smack somebody upside the head like right when they get out of corporate or like whatever, like right then you're like, okay, no, this is different. Like, it's even like around money, right? We think about money like very differently too. I don't know, it really can be any industry who's like coming straight out of corporate or a certain conformity schedule that needs to go through a little bit of brand therapy.
Outside of just that structure, would you say there's an element where it's just, all right, this is what we think society expects from us, right? Like in terms of like how I present myself.
Yeah.
And then, so what allows them, what would you say is the biggest thing that allows them to actually make that shift? Is it just, like dealing with the consequences, feeling like they're not being themselves? Like, what do you think is like maybe that one thing that helps most people make that switch and just say, all right, we're going to do this drastically different?
I mean, knowing that you're worthy, to be honest. Like, knowing that you're worthy to be seen, knowing that you're worthy to be heard, like actually having trust in yourself in a way that looks completely different. Because ultimately that question comes down to you don't have enough belief in yourself to like make this work. And like we get that in like corporate, your voice is not heard until you're at a certain level at the table. Like, you only get invited in when you have the title. But in entrepreneurship, you and I could be sitting at the table with a billionaire. We could mention an idea and they'd be like, dude, that's great. Like, thank you. Like, it's level versus not level. So really the question is, do you actually believe in yourself, and do you believe that you're worthy of success in your own independent field or not?
Yeah. No, I do appreciate that, because as you're giving that answer, I'm like, I've done it myself. It's just like stuff you're going to post. I'm like, I don't know, man. And how are people going to take this?
Yeah.
And now I'm just at the point, like, I don't really care. This is, to your point, like, this is me. Like, this is what we're going to do. If people are going to work with me or not, like, be it.
Stand on business. Why not? Who cares? Like, and who's going to care?
I have a question. At what point should an organization hire that agency where like they did the shadow work, they did some things for themselves, and they're like, okay, I do need to get someone like yourself to kind of unpack some of this and get a little bit more clarity? At what point do you recommend people like, hey, this, if you're feeling this way, now it's time to look at reach out?
When you can explain your customers' problems, when you can explain their desires, when you can explain every single symptom that they go through, when you can tell me off the rip everything, when you can tell me off of the handle, sorry, that's a very Gen Z term of me, when you can tell me regularly what you feel like what you feel like that person is going through, and how like you can speak directly about them and everything that they're struggling with, then you can hire a videographer or an agency who can help you expand that message. Because then you'll know, hey, that doesn't sound right, that's not actually what they go through this, I need you to be more specific on this script, or like we need to tweak this here. Like, you run the show instead of them. That is when you feel confident and you can actually hire a videographer. Like, we're now, like, I can hire a videographer and be like, let's just like have a one-on-one conversation where you ask me about things and I can like tell you about them. Those are much easier for me to do versus at the beginning it was not. So like, when you can tell me problems, symptoms, desires, you know everything about that person, what they're going through, what they ultimately want to achieve, and what you do and how you can help them, then by all means.
Because it sounds like once you have that, then you can put yourself into your own client's shoes, and so whatever that agency is creating, as you put yourself in your client's shoes, you're like, this doesn't resonate with them. This is missing the mark.
Exactly. And again, you become the driver and they start becoming the passenger, which they always should be. They should be the ones joining your journey instead of being the ones driving it.
When you're specifically working with somebody and you're trying to help them gain some clarity, I think you had this phrase, clarity keys, if I'm not mistaken. What can you maybe like walk us through? Like, I know you mentioned the who, the what. I'll let you kind of explain it, but like, how do you actually help the person find it when they're, especially if they're really up in their head?
Totally. So the clarity keys are the who, the what, the why, and the how. And so the who is like actually like diving deep on like who we're specifically talking to. I have like some like activities that I work with my clients one-on-one, where it is an actual like process where, I mean, anyone can create this. Like, if you guys haven't done this, it's a very fun exercise of creating your ideal client and what that person's name is, how old they are, where they live, what are they dreaming about having. Like, it's literally the person who's like scrolling and being like, what do they need to hear that's going to stop their scroll and like be like, oh, that's exactly what I need to hear. Like, oh my God, or this like fits me. Whether it be like how short or long term they like listen to you. Point being is like, what is the thing that they need to hear in order for that to instantly create a change? So that's the who, like understanding that. The what is like, what are you offering? Like, what's different about you? Like, I just, like, I need to know more. Like, if you have a product, service, offer, it needs to be really clear and honestly really simplified, because people, like I said, overcomplicate it, and it just doesn't need to be that. So what is it that you're offering and what makes you different? And then you have the why. That's like more personal to the founder and a little bit to the consumer of like, why are you doing what you're doing, and why should somebody listen to you? Like, really, what gives you the authority here? Like those types of examples. And then the how. It's just like, how are you going to help them through that process? Because we have the what, right? Like what you do, but then like, what is the how? Like, how are you pushing them through that? And it's, when it comes to content, people get lost in kind of educational and the how, but it's not about that. It's literally about knowing your own system, your own process, so then you can talk about the outcome that you lead with someone rather than just the process.
Damn. All right. Impressive. You know, we talked about the effect also on culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you give a really great explanation of that. What do you think, or how do you think gaining clarity on your brand could also help organizations actually hire better talent?
That's a really good question.
I know, right?
I think that it honestly helps cultivate and like weed out the kind of people who don't want to align with the culture that you are creating. For example, I was literally talking about this with one of my founders recently about, you know how like corporate, like no offense to like anyone in corporate, but like it comes with like the passive aggressive tone, and like you kind of have side conversations with teams rather than direct conversations with individuals. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Definitely can.
Yeah. And like, it's not all corporations, but it's a pretty good amount. Whereas like someone's afraid to like talk directly to the person. At the jump, you have to nip that in the bud. Like, you have to be like, no, I'm not doing this. Like, if you want to have a conversation, and if you feel some type of way about something, tell me directly. Like, building a brand and having a message that you ultimately stand by is, again, stand on business. Like, ultimately stand on what you're believing in, and whether that be like, hey, I'm a business that stands on truth, authenticity, and transparency, then that means that you tell me when you think that this is a boring idea. You tell me when this is a little edgy. You tell me when everything is wrong, and we cultivate a community based on trust. So how people can use that in the hiring process and in looking for good team members is like asking what their values are. Like seeing what they value more as like an individual, and are they actually willing to be transparent, open, honest, whatever that looks like for you, because you have your company values, right? Does that person align with what you're building? And do they have the attitude to help you create and cultivate the change that you're trying to make with your mission, your brand, your values, everything that makes a brand a brand?
It's funny to say. I mean, we talk a lot of business owners, and you ask them, all right, what's your vision, your mission? Well, then like, I don't know. Yeah. And then they wonder like, why do I hire crappy people? It's like, well, you don't even know like who you're trying to fit in. What you know, I like doing this, but I'm just curious to know, you're more obviously the expert here than I am. But utilizing even your social media branding and content to attract that kind of talent. Do you have any of those conversations where it's even, all right, if you're structuring your messaging, you're not just always speaking to clients, but you're speaking to potential new employees?
You do. It is a little bit, it's sometimes tricky because it's like your audience can be a little confused. I would say that if you're going to build something like that speaks to both the clients and people that want to work with you, I would say you show more of like who you are and like what the current team that you have. So then people are naturally drawn to that. So like, do you guys know who like Ryan Serhant is?
Yeah. A real estate guy. Great.
Real estate guy.
Yeah.
Super good dude. He naturally, based off of who he is and how he is, has cultivated a culture. And so now, by showing up on social media through his ironic TV show, like through all of his books and stuff like that, people literally line up at the doors to work with them. Like they're like, I want to work for Serhant because of that brand. So that being said, if you're thinking about your content, then your job and your content should be showing your culture, showing what you believe in, show what it means, show what it looks like to work for you, what it looks like to work with you. Like literally, I was just commented on Ryan Serhant's thing because his assistant and him made a bet for like him for Ryan paying for his honeymoon, and so Danny just hit 3 million. Like it's a wrap. Like Ryan's paying for his honeymoon. I know that because he's created a culture with his audience being like, if I was a real estate agent, I would totally love to work with him because he's created the system, process, and whatever. So it's ultimately like this, what I would say, like a brand world or like a community that you cultivate, this energy that speaks for you. Like it's fun, it's magnetic, it's whatever you want it to be. And people are naturally like, are you hiring? Like, how can I get involved?
Speaking of that, if someone wants to hire you, work with you, what's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
Truthfully, Instagram is the best way. Samantha Aalyze, Alyze, as spelling my last name. But I think that's the easiest way, just because we can have a conversation. I can look at your current content, and I mean, I feel like it gives me an insight into your world. And if you have a bunch of pictures or a bunch of still photos and I'm like, oh, this is why your brand isn't bringing in clients, then we should have a conversation.
Good. Well, we definitely learned a lot. And thank you so much for joining us today. And I really like the idea of brand therapy, the clarity keys and everything. And you said you also have a school community?
I have a school community called the Brand Rebellion. And it is $111 a month, transparently speaking. It is all literally about if you guys are looking to understand your messaging, your content, and how to actually activate your audience, then that is the school community for you.
You heard it.
Love it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks,
Great
guys.
job. Yeah.